Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new video. This is going to be a different one and one that we are trialing, I guess you could say.
Trialing, is that a word?
Yeah, I think so. Trial and error, trialing, like whatever. Is it a word? I don't know, we're testing it out. Yeah. So I was brainstorming. I know, scary. And I had this thought of like having you guys submit a topic once a week. We pick one of your topics and we openly discuss it. It can be anything and everything that you can think of. So, very open conversation. And I'm looking forward to it. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, we'll see if they're looking forward to it after.
Yeah, true. Like, if you guys enjoy it, we'll continue doing it. So obviously I'll still be vlogging, but I thought this would be fun because Larry and I love sitting down and chatting with you guys, and it's a little bit different than just the Q&A.
We'll give it a whirl.
So think of this as basically a podcast without it being a podcast. If you just want to pop us on while you're cleaning, while you're driving to work, whatever you may be doing. So it's like a podcast without committing to creating a podcast.
A podcast that's not a podcast.
Yes, keeping it here on YouTube. So the very first topic that we're going to discuss is police work. That was a heavily requested topic. The topic of police work was sent in by Miss Faith Del Toro. Again, there was a lot of you who did send this in, but she was the very first person, the first comment that sent this in. Special shout out to Miss Faith Del Toro.
Thank you, Faith, and we'll do this and hopefully I'll get it right, and the rest of everybody else that suggested it can enjoy it while we do it.
Yes. As you guys know or may not know, Larry was a police officer, so I have pulled questions from the internet, so I'm going to interview you.
I'll do it.
Larry, do you want to start off by kind of telling them the years that you were a police officer, if you want, how many years you were a police officer, and the state that you were an officer in, if you feel comfortable sharing that information?
That was easy. That was in the state of Ohio. I started in the city of Rocky River, which is on the shores of Lake Erie, as an auxiliary police officer. And then I started working uniform security at NASA. At the time, it was the Lewis Research Center. It's now known as the Glenn Research Center. I was there for 5 or 6 years, and then I got hired in the city of North Olmsted, another western suburb of Cleveland, and I worked there for 25 years and retired from there.
Amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So you have a long career. You know what you're talking about. You've seen a lot, probably.
I can accept that.
There we go. What was the most rewarding aspect of your job as a police officer?
I think when you went to a traffic intersection, busiest time of the day, multi-lanes of traffic, everything is standstill because there's a bunch of wrecked cars in the intersection. Everything is kind of chaos and bedlam, and you're just adding to it because now you're adding police cars and you have to call ambulances, and there's even more things coming to the center of where everything's at a standstill. And you get done with what you need to do, and it's been about 20-25 minutes, and the squads are already there. The injured have been removed. They're on their way to the hospital. The tow trucks show up. You get everything done, and realistically, within sometimes under an hour, a little over an hour, you have this intersection that's just gridlocked to now being open again. The roadway's cleared. The stuff has been picked up. You would never know coming by at 6:15 in the evening that at 5:45 in the evening it was just chaos. And it's just a sense of getting things done that you needed to do and affecting the least amount of people that could be affected by it, trying to get through that busy intersection. Because when I worked at the NASA facility, there were guys that worked on projects for months, maybe even a year. And they would come into work one day and they'd say, hey, we had an advancement in this area and we're going to scrap how we looked at this project and we're going to kind of retool and do some other stuff, so it's going to be delayed for a couple months. These guys went to work for months working on this and were told, oh, for whatever reason, we're going to backdoor this and it's going to be shelved and we're going to wait. And that would have drove me crazy.
See, and then as an outsider looking in, or somebody who's coming into an intersection of chaos, like a normal person going about their day, a lot of us get super frustrated. Like, oh, this is annoying. I can't go my route. I have to turn around. I don't know where I'm going. And we get all irritated. And it's like, we need to stop and remember and stop and think that there is somebody that's having a much worse catastrophic possibly event going on in that intersection. There are people's lives at risk. There are officers trying to get a job done, paramedics, firemen. There's people there that are there to do a job. And as frustrating as it is to have to reroute, go around, get delayed, there's always somebody that's in that situation that is going through something really terrible that could be life altering and life changing. So just as an outside perspective, we need to remember that. And then also thank you to all the police, fire, paramedics, everybody who is there, the people who have witnessed something horrible as well. Like, just thank everybody and think about everybody who was in that event.
Because not only am I there trying to get information to do the reports and everything in that nature, but there's also responsibility of all these other people that are coming there for a reason. I have to try and do my best to make sure that they are safe while they are there. Tow truck drivers putting things up on flatbeds or putting a hook underneath them, the firemen, the paramedics, all the equipment that's there. So there's a lot of responsibility, and when you get it right and it happens in an hour or less, it's rewarding.
What was the most challenging or difficult situation that you faced during your career? That's a lot of career to think about and go over in a very short minute. He did not have time to prep, by the way. So maybe some of these will prep so we can think this out.
I think challenging, difficult, and sometimes frustrating, and it had to do with domestic violence. You get a couple that were in love, they get married, they have a family, they're all living as the family unit, and something goes south, and now there's physical abuse, and to the point where you get called there and show up in a uniform in a police car.
Our little one. Our little one will be joining us. But yeah, domestic violence is a very serious topic and one that Larry and I do not take lightly at all. So if you or anybody that you know going through domestic violence, I will leave resource down below in case you need to report anything or you need help yourselves. But yeah, it's a very serious topic. Something that did just pop up on my phone when I was researching this for you guys was that sometimes a domestic abuser will track your phones or your search history on site. So they did recommend right on the hotline that if you need to go and use a public computer at a library or somewhere else to make a report and you need help, definitely do that. So I want to share that here. That's something that I didn't even think about. That's very crucial and very important.
Another thing that's offered that can help is people that have cell phones that are going to be replaced, not necessarily traded in. If you're stuck with it and you think, what am I going to do with this? You can donate them, even anonymously, to domestic violence shelters. They will have the phone serviced and they will give them to the victims of domestic violence so that they have a way to reach out without being tracked.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. What advice would you give to someone just starting out in law enforcement?
Ask a lot of questions. Know your physical capabilities. Know that it's going to be a lot of work, but it's a very rewarding experience.
Do you think, I have a random question for you. Times were probably much different. Maybe they weren't. Back then when you first started your career in the 90s, right? When you became a police officer with your final department.
Yes.
Was in the early 90s.
Right.
Knowing what you know now and the advancements and the different kind of cases that police officers see today, would you go into being a police officer today, knowing what you know now?
I would.
You would. No.
If I was that younger person. It's definitely a career for young people. I got old and it was time to go.
You're very physically fit though, but they do say those jobs are like a young man's job. Now here's another twist question for you. Would you want Liam or Emma going into police work?
If it made them happy and they were with the mindset that they were confident they could do it, yes. Would I try and steer them another way? I might, but the big thing is them.
Yeah, that's 100% what I would probably do too, is I would support if that was their dream and something that they wanted to do, but it would absolutely terrify me to see them in that role or any role where you're putting your life on the line every day.
And I had guys that when I was starting, they were getting ready to retire, and they said, boy, am I glad I'm getting out now. I just can't believe the changes in society and the changes in the world. I can't imagine me doing this any longer. And fast forward 25 years to when I'm leaving, and I thought about what they told me, and I thought, that's kind of true. And now that I've been gone for, almost 10 years.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, not quite 10 years. It's probably tenfold even now with things that guys would say now that we're leaving. Remember, if you start this, there's a lot of different phases of your training. If you go to an academy, for however long that is, you have to learn how they want you to do things while you're at the academy. Then you go to your department. You have to find out how your department expects you to do certain things. While you're learning that, you have to remember that if you have a training officer, they're going to look for certain things. Hopefully it coincides with what the department's looking for, make it a little bit easier. But then you have a prosecutor that's going to want to have things done a certain way. You're going to want a judge that's going to look for things to be done in a certain way. So it's constantly, gosh, if I do it this way, then I'm not doing it. It'll all fall into place. You'll figure it all out, and you get on the same page with everyone else. But that transition period to get there is a little bit rough, so just keep that in mind.
Did you specialize in any particular area of law enforcement? For example, SWAT, K-9 investigations. What did you enjoy about that specialization?
I did evidence work. We called it evidence technician, which is, I guess, the same as CSI if you watch TV. We do that. That's when you go in, and sometimes it's kind of obvious. There's things that you can find, and other times there's latent is the word that gets tossed out a lot with fingerprints and things of that nature. So it's kind of fun when you can put pieces together, and you don't always do it just on your own. I mean, it'd be almost impossible. You're going to have co-workers that are helping you. You're going to have guys that are detectives that are going to throw what ifs or how about or could this happen, and then you're going to get tips from the public. And when you are able to put all of them together into a coherent series of events, then a lot of times you end up making an arrest, and that's fun.
Did you enjoy being an evidence technician?
I did, yes. It was very rewarding. You got to do a lot of things that a lot of your coworkers didn't get to do. You got a lot of fun toys to play with. And working with guys that were canine handlers, it was always fun when they needed help to assist with them, so you could put the bite suit on and you could have the dog come and get you, or you could hide somewhere and wait for the dog to find you, or just work with them and see what they do and how they do it, how impressive they are. So you got to look at a different aspect of the job in many different ways, and work with the fire department with their investigations and see how they do it and how meticulous they are, and get to work with those guys and their toys, and work with the coroner's office, and mind-boggling the amount of information they could compile on something in a very short amount of time.
Was there anything that made you wish that you weren't an evidence technician? Is there any scenario that you dealt with or saw that you were like, oh, I wish I wasn't on call today, kind of a thing?
No, it was never, I wish I wasn't the one. Sometimes I wish I was, because some of the guys that I work with didn't want to. I mean, they all did, and they all did very good, but I never looked at it that way. It was, sometimes I was glad that I was the one that was there and not those guys, because it just wasn't their wheelhouse, so to speak. But they all did what they needed to do, and they all did it well.
Yeah, knowing Larry and hearing his stories and stuff like that, it sounds like that was one of your favorite jobs on the job, and that you were very passionate with those calls and doing that job. So, oh, this is a big one, and this is another one where it's a very serious topic, especially in law enforcement and military. But how did you handle stressful situations or traumatic events?
Again, certain things affect people differently, and I was one that didn't really get overwhelmed by something. If anything, I would take a step back, and sometimes it would probably annoy people if they were watching me, because that fire starts, the energy starts going, the wheels start turning, the smoke comes out your ears, and you start asking a million questions. I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to check on this has to be done first and foremost, and then you have to make sure that you can find the person that you can trust to make sure that that happens, or make sure that that doesn't happen. And just put things in a chronological order so that you remember to do everything you need to do, and it makes sense while you're doing it. Sometimes you have to jump ahead, but then you also have to remember to go back to where you were before you jumped ahead and finish those 2 or 3 things in between and make sure that they're done. So it's a lot of juggling, but you can get it done and it's rewarding.
What were some of the biggest changes you saw in policing during your career? Body cams. Did you guys have those from the start?
Not from the start, no. We didn't even have cameras in the cars. So cameras would be probably the most thing. Took a few years, but we tried like heck to go from shooting film to going digital. And we were able to do that. And that was a huge change. So I think the cameras, the pursuit or no pursuit, that policy was kind of gray area for a while, and eventually got to a point where you didn't pursue.
There was just a case on Facebook that I saw that a vehicle was running away and was going at a high rate of speed, and they called off the pursuit, and it ended up going through multiple cities because it was endangering the public.
There was protocols as to how to call off a pursuit that you would think, really? But it makes sense.
What about in the ways that you and how these are going into some topics for sure, but in ways that you detain, and what about that?
That wasn't me, that was the phone.
Larry moved his phone on the table. We did not toot. Although tooting is fine.
Yeah, better out than in.
Okay, Shrek.
Ooh.
Did it change, or was it always a standard?
No, I'm sure there were changes. Some of it were drastic changes that made you think, what? Why? And then other ones were, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Sometimes change was frustrating, like it is, I'm sure, for everybody. But in the most part, the more people that get home safely is the number one reason, and that makes the most sense. What else?
I was going to think of my own question, but like when to shoot and when not to shoot.
Oh, some of that is basic academy training. And I mean, you're not supposed to ever point a gun at something unless you're absolutely committed to the fact that if you have to, you're going to destroy whatever that thing is. And it's just, that falls into common sense training, but I think it's another thing that you hear enough that you learn, it just becomes second nature.
I'm sure we could go on and on and on about the changes for sure. How did you stay motivated throughout your career, especially during challenging times? Were there any times that you wanted to give up the career and walk away?
There's times of frustration, and a lot of it had to do with pretty much, I don't want to say internal issues, but you have a chain of command. And again, if you're starting out new, know your chain of command. It starts from basically a field training officer to a sergeant to a detective to a lieutenant to a captain to a chief. I mean, you can go. Some even have assistants and other things that would add an extra layer to that chain. But there's politics involved with anything. Our building was right next to City Hall, so there was that walkway between the two that were constantly, a lot of apartments saying what's going on with this, or who did that, or why did they do that, or why was it done this way and not the other. There's always questions, and I'm not big in politics. And very early on, I had a chief of police ask me if I thought someday I could do his job, and quite honestly, I didn't know what his job was. I've never seen the daily ins and outs of being a police chief, so I had really no idea what he actually did during the day. I know he runs the police department. He's got employee issues, he's got city hall issues, he's got a lot of things he's juggling. So there's some things that I don't know about that might have caused problems. I mean, sometimes if I was getting called in to have a talking to, I didn't know if it was something I did or something I didn't do. And if you get in that situation and they call you in and it's something you did, admit to doing it. Just make it easier. And if it's something you didn't do, admit that you didn't do it, because a lot of times there may be a really valid reason why you didn't do it. And if somebody says, why did you do it this way? Well, there might be a half a dozen different things that you could have done to get the result that you got at the end. And just articulate why you did it and why you thought that was the best way to do it. And I don't think you'll have any problems.
Excellent advice. You know what I never liked, not that I was a police officer, but when you work in a workplace and the boss or your chain of command higher up says, come into my office and close the door, please. It's like, oh God. And the only time it's a good thing or a fun thing is if you're getting a raise. Otherwise.
No, yeah.
What was your favorite memory from your time on the force?
The floodgates have opened. There's a lot of different things. Helping out around Christmas time, and we had the annual Christmas tree lighting ceremony at City Hall, and I was given the honor, the utmost honor, to pick up Santa Claus as he arrived in the city and give him a police escort to City Hall so that he could go and greet the kids and be present at the tree lighting ceremony. And it was always fun to see the kids when Santa would show up in our police vehicle and make a big deal out of it. And just helping the elderly and giving people breaks on things that they didn't expect to be getting a break on, and explaining why they were getting a break, and also explaining that they should appreciate the chance that I was giving them. And I could go into further detail, but I just leave it at that.
Yeah, the Santa Claus one I've heard you tell a bit. And then you got to see Air Force One, but was that when you worked at NASA?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Air Force One, Marine One, the helicopter.
Who was the president then when you
I think it started with, the first time I saw it was Ronald Reagan was the president.
Did you get to see him?
I didn't get to see him.
What about
but the guys on Air Force One that we work with, they were the main guys. We were just kind of off to the side. They gave us stuff out of the helicopter. I guess he liked velements a lot, besides jelly beans, which is what he's famous for liking, I guess, was jelly beans. But he liked velements, and they would give us these special wrapped things of elements with a presidential seal on it and stuff that were made special for him.
Are we saying velements or elements?
Velements.
Okay, now for those of us who don't know what a velement is, because I'm one of them, so I'm sure there's somebody else who doesn't know, what is a velement?
It was a breath freshener that was in it almost looked like Hall's mentholyptus square things, but it was in a white package, and it was a breath mint, and it was called Velemint.
Well, we learned something new today.
But they had matchbooks covers that said Marine One, presidential helicopter, and just a bunch of stuff that they were probably told, hey, get rid of some of this stuff and make guys feel good that you're working with them. And I got to work with a detail with Vice President Dan Quayle one time, and that was very successful, and was surprised by not only a letter of appreciation but also a Christmas card from the Quayle family.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Like, what is this? Why am I getting mail? That's from the who?
It's from who? That pretty much wraps up the questions that I want to ask you. So do you have anything that you want to add that we didn't go over?
If you're starting out, good luck, and you can do it. You can do it. If you're doing it now, hang in there, keep your head up, it'll go fast. That was another thing that I was always told. Oh, you might look at it and think you're going to be here forever, but it's going to go fast. And I had guys that had countdown squares on their desks with how much time, days, hours,
Not that they were
minutes,
counting.
seconds, they were counting. And it was funny because several of those that had those extended working beyond what their clock said, and they were there longer than, I'm leaving, I'm getting out of here. They didn't. They stayed. When I said I was leaving, I was done. I was leaving. It was time.
Yeah, I feel that. All right, guys. That wraps this up. I hope we answered a lot of questions about this topic that you guys had. And let us know if you like this style video. Leave your suggestions down below and other topics that you would like us to discuss. I had fun interviewing you.
Oh, I had fun being interviewed by you.
It was fun to listen to you and your stories.
Bayou, that's in Louisiana.
Is it a place? Is that from a movie? I don't know.
The Bayou?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Louisiana thing.
Oh, okay. I've never been to Louisiana. One day we'll have to go.
Yeah, we're right almost next door.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you guys again in the next one. Bye.
Bye.